This is a clouds weather alert.
Good late Thursday, early Friday. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center right now, giving a look at those current temperatures across the region. You see a lot of 30s on the board. There are some 40s in other spots here as well. I know where I'm at here east of Stark, it's close to 2 in the morning. We're sitting at about 33 degrees, rural areas, so a little bit cooler out here. I know this is a type of pattern where you can have it, where you have a little more variety. I know sometimes when you have the winds up or cloud cover, that's really a lot more prevalent, and that's when you have a situation where you can end up having a scenario here where you do have more cloud cover. Things are more generalized in some regard now. Of course, it just depends. I mean, if half the area has cloud cover and half doesn't, then it's a different story. But if everybody has cloud cover, that's what I kind of mean. But that's not really the case right now. There's scattering of clouds here across mainly the Florida counties. But as we're kind of looking at things here, I'm in alert mode now because we have that logo red as we're going to be watching a winter weather situation potentially develop in terms of frozen precipitation for our area next week. And this is really starting to include more of North Florida as well. And I mean, freezing rain, sleet, snow even a possibility. It's kind of remarkable here, but we got to be careful because you hear snow and you think of the fun aspects of things, and there's a good chance some of our area, if we really get the impacts from the winter storm and the wintry precipitation, will have just mainly the fun, but other folks will have potentially more serious consequences here. If some of the models verify, we could have some pretty big problems. So let me go ahead and say here the graphic I put together about this. We've never really had to talk about something like this since we've been doing cloud weather, but here we go. We're talking, that's 5+ years. As you see, the forecast currently very uncertain, so stay tuned for further updates. We may have to break in here during the weekend, early next week, out ahead of this before it really, starts there in earnest late Monday through part of that Wednesday. So again, this could be a very significant storyline here. Again, we're talking about freezing rain, sleet, and snow possible for our area. The odds are increasing here. I know we said like 45% for Wednesday next week. Well, now it's looking like, for South Georgia, for freezing rain and sleet. Well, now it's looking like all the types of precip here are a possibility, and that threat could extend into North Florida, and there's a chance the North Florida precip, especially if we get in North Central Florida, it might not only be snow, it might be freezing rain. Talking about ice, and that might mean an ice storm, and we really do not see ice storms around here much, looking back even through history. So that would be a big problem if some of the model guidance were to verify. So very late Monday through Wednesday is when we're watching. Make sure your emergency supply kit is up to date here. Power outages could be possible. They would be likely if we get an ice storm, so consider stocking up on items like milk and bread, and you may need extra blankets here too. And if we do have significant freezing rain accumulations occur, example, of course, would be, and really the wording for that would be an ice storm. Then, we could have major damage to trees and power equipment. That could occur, and many accidents are possible, and impacts could rival a tropical system. The European guidance here, the model guidance, keeps saying ice storm for like Lake City over to Stark and that general vicinity, and let's hope that does not happen. GFS / the American model, so a more wintry precip in the form of snow. It wouldn't be much in that area, more toward areas further up north and northwest. You kind of get the idea, but it's a situation. If we were to get, let's say, 1/4 inch of ice around here, or even like the guidance is showing 1/2 inch plus, and that would be a big, big deal. That impacts would rival a hurricane, not just like I say tropical system. I'm trying to kind of edge on, hopefully, and really hedge on that this isn't as bad as what some of the models are showing here, because the DFS really doesn't have the freezing rain in there. The European model is given a lot of ice here as we're looking at things like late Tuesday into early Wednesday, again, subject to change, but, we could have many folks in the dark in that scenario. Let's hope that doesn't happen. There's a decent chance it doesn't happen because there isn't much history for something like that around here. But that would bring down trees, that'd bring down power equipment here, and that'd be a big problem. Could also, that threat could also shift around. You know, it's about the different profiles, which I'll get to here in the atmosphere, what type of precip you get. Maybe the ice shifts north, we get more rain here, and the snow threat shifts, you know, in just the fringes of our area further off toward the north and west. That's possible too. But it's looking more likely somebody's going to have, you know, wintry precip here that is impactful next week within our 62 counties. It could be a lot of folks. I mean, some of the guidance is saying pretty much everybody's going to get some type of frozen precip around here. And a lot of that being impactful. So, you know, snow impactful. I know I'm not going to show it here on the air, but the European guidance is going crazy with the amount of snow for maybe Tallahassee next week. I mean, we're talking about several inches of snow possibly, but you know, it's very uncertain right now. But a lot of guidance is showing some snow. We don't have, you know, I can't say the numbers yet. We're just too far out to give you specifics, you know, whether it's numbers, types, county by county, but I'm trying to kind of generalize it best I can in the conversation now without going into the model guidance, you know, too much more. But, you know, we hope it's just mostly about snow because we would want to see snow. You know, ice, that could be about one of the worst things we ever have around here. The impacts could rival, you know, in terms of, you know, injuries and even sadly fatalities with accidents and the like, and trees falling. And that could rival a hurricane or a tornado. But snow, of course, folks can still get hurt during that. You're not used to dealing with it, but it's more about having fun and folks to be able to have a snowman maybe built in parts of our area here and the like, depending on the type of snow it is and just exactly how much. You know, you could make a snowman, you could have a snowball fight, things along those lines here. Again, it's very uncertain, though. There's a chance we really don't get much of this, but the odds are increasing of something within North Florida, South Georgia. South Georgia, chances are higher just based on the overall meteorology here as we're looking at things. But, you know, snow is much more about having fun, but also staying safe while having fun. So, kind of get the idea there. You know, that's what we're talking about. When you see snow, that's a lot funner. Sleet, well, that can be, you know, slippery and not fun. It's kind of like, you know, small hail and the like. It's kind of in between there. It's not really fun, but, you know, it's not extremely dangerous unless there's just a whole bunch of it. Then it could really get slippery. But the ice, that would be, you know, that could be devastating. It could be crippling here for our area if we were to get, you know, that threat, and parts of our area could get one, parts of our area could get the other. So part of our area could be having fun, you know, while part of our area is down with a true disaster. So, I mean, I hate even saying that, but this is a very tricky situation. It gets very hard to forecast this stuff that far out, you know, but the models are all pretty much on the same page now that some of our area, if not a lot of our area, is going to have, you know, impactful wintry precipitation next week. You know, that's a big deal, you know, and we're just going to have to keep looking here at the scenario as the timeline gets, you know, further down here the road per se. So, again, just trying to kind of give you the very latest here on all of this. Again, it's very uncertain, but we're in alert mode now. We're ramping our level of conversation up because the models, you know, on a, you know, page that we really haven't seen around here. I mean, you may have to go back. I mean, I didn't look at the models obviously back in 89 or 77 because I wasn't born then. But the point is, you know, this is the type of situation we could be dealing with, you know, in terms of the impacts here. You know, it could also be a situation like 2014 or 2018 where you have it a lot more centered in Georgia and somewhat in Tallahassee and not near as much, you know, hardly anything Jacksonville to Stark. So that's a possibility as well. We're just going to continue to watch things. I know we've been doing cloud weather since like 2019. We're just going to continue to track things here and give you the latest. So here's the types of precipitation. This is a graphic from the National Weather Service. I mean, honestly, this is something, you know, freezing rain, you know, it's not something I dealt with around here being, you know, Floridian for many years as a kid. You know, that's not something you deal with. You know, it's hard to even understand. You know, I know a lot and knew a lot about weather going into college, but freezing rain, that was something till I experienced it there at FSU in 2014. I didn't know exactly, the intricacies of that. But so you see snow, snowflakes, they're just, is coming, from the cloud of snow going all the way down to the surface. Sleet, well, you see it here. There's a layer in there. You have the snow, and then you jump above 32 a little bit, further down in the atmospheric height here. You get above 32, but then it drops again. You can look at things on some meteorology sites. There's different plots there with the temperatures, and we don't never really showed one of these here on the air, but I'm talking about a QT plot here, folks. As we're looking at things and just trying to let you guys understand what I mean. It's important to understanding the different layers and what kind of precip you could get here, the types of precip that we're talking about. So this is stuff, we're not used to talking about here in terms of these different kinds of precipitation. But again, you have freezing rain here. So that means rain freezes on contact with the surface. So you see it starts out as snow, but then it comes down toward the surface here. And as it gets there, you can see for a while it's just rain, but then when it gets down to the ground, it's below or at 32, the freezing point, and then you have that freezing rain, and then the rain, well, it never refreezes, and we could end up, some of us probably would, especially like maybe Flagler County or something. You could just end up with a cold rain out of all this. So as we're looking at things, what's the hype of that is probably what you'll be seeing there. But there'll be an area where it's fun, is what we're thinking right now. A swath where it's very dangerous, and a swath where it's just cold rain. So again, in terms of the geography there, as we're looking at things, so that's what we're kind of looking at right now. Again, you see that blue area there, at or below 32. That's the snow. That's the potential what we're looking at there. And then that's all the way through. But sleet, you're at or below 32, but then you get above it before it gets above the surface. It refreezes, and it's dropping as frozen precip, freezing rain. It's wintry, then it converts to rain, but then because it's so cold, closer toward the ground, it freezes on contact with the surface. That can be leaves as well, and power lines and the like. And then you get a quarter inch of that on everything. It's too heavy. I know it kind of sounds crazy if you're not familiar with it. A lot of Floridians, including myself, aren't too familiar with this, but you have a quarter inch of that, and a half inch especially, 3/4 of an inch. The more you have of it, the more it weighs down power lines and tree limbs, and then you have power outages, increasing exponentially here. So this is kind of the storyline there as we're looking at things, as we're kind of tracking the overall scenario here. We just need to stay tuned for the very latest. Again, this graphic here is from the National Weather Service, so weather.gov. I know there's a decent chance, some of our 62 counties will be going under watches here as we look ahead. Winter weather watches maybe, as we look into toward, I would say around Sunday, give or take, to prepare everybody for this threat. So that means, right now though, it's always a good time. Anytime is always a good time to have that, emergency supply kit up to date. I want to say hurricane kit. I mean, it's pretty much, almost the same thing here at this point. But again, you want to have batteries. You want to have things like that. Extra water. Again, in this situation, if you're without power, milk and bread can be helpful. I mean, it's going to be cold enough, here that things will potentially, depending on how you do things, be a little bit more able to be kept here. But eventually, if we have a power outage for like a week for some folks, and you're gonna be throwing stuff away. But it kind of fits more into the overall meteorology, the type of things that you might buy and consume. As we go ahead and look here, this is 77 here. I was talking about 89, 77. Well, this is what it looked like in 1977. Now, that was a different situation, and you had the precip go way south. I mean, we're not expecting that situation. I mean, maybe Hampton does get snow. It's possible now. We were saying the other day, unlikely. It's still more likely that we'd have not snow, but now it's looking like maybe freezing rain there, even in Hampton and Bradford County. But this was snow there in '77. Photos from relatives here from way back then. Some of them are still living, some sadly aren't. But as we're kind of looking here, looking at this here down there in southern Bradford County, that situation, we had snow flurries all the way down in Miami in that event. We're not expecting that here. So that pattern, was quite a bit different. Now, the pattern 89, well, there may be some similarities actually, but it could end up, being sadly for like Jacksonville, more about ice and snow, but they had a lot of ice and then snow as well mixing on in there in 89. So you just never know here what we're talking about. Talking about 1989, White Christmas in 1989. It was right before it, but folks had snow on the ground for Christmas in 1989. I don't have a graphic in here for that now. We've talked about it a lot over the years, but this is, these are pictures here from family back in 1977 here in southern Bradford County, kind of telling that weather story. We would love to see snow here in Bradford County. Still got to be careful. Still can be dangerous, but you want snow. Sleet, probably don't want it, but it's not terrible. Not fun, but not terrible. But ice can be deadly in a lot of situations here, folks. So you gotta be really keeping that in mind. As you're looking here, precipitation forecast, I changed the labeling on this. Now, there's conversion factors that you have to deal with between snow and between rain here. As we're kind of looking at things, as we're kind of tracking the situation, we're talking about, certain amounts of snow equaling certain amounts of rain. But this just kind of gives you a broad brush. A lot of, the rain, because, less rain. And this is a little hard to explain here on the air because we don't ever have to do it. It doesn't take much rain to have a lot of snow, a lot of, that much moisture to get a lot of snow, as you're looking at the ratios and the like. But as you're looking, we're going to have rain and maybe some storms on Saturday and into Sunday here. Could have some strong to severe weather around here later Saturday and, the first part of Sunday. So make sure, as we're talking about the wintry weather, we're in alert mode for that. We may have to cut in a little for isolated severe thunderstorm and or tornado warning Saturday into Sunday here. We're going to get up about 70 degrees here in parts of our area on Saturday. So some instability coming into play, some wind shear maybe coming into play here. Not overwhelming, but something to watch for as we're looking, could have a line of showered and thunderstorms around 7 o'clock Sunday morning around, north central Florida. Cloudy.com/radar gives an interactive look at things, and we're not on the air, or you can pull it up while you're watching me, but that helps you guys out there. And then the 62 counties, again, we'll be on for any tornado warning storm within the 62 counties, and I was working, preliminarily on a graphic to kind of show different areas of the greatest danger in terms of the precip types, but decided not to quite show that yet because there's still too much uncertainty to try to nail that down. I was going to be kind of showing one scenario based on some model guidance, but I didn't quite feel comfortable showing that yet. There's just a little too much uncertainty still on that, but if I had to kind of guess here, what I'm seeing right now, let's just say the European model is pretty much what happens. We could have a lot of snow here, Tallahassee and the like, maybe Valdosta. Now, Albany might not get as much because it'd be so cold, you don't get that much precip altogether. But we shall see. But then you have maybe freezing rain around Lake City. It could be just a situation where the interstates get shut down. That's what we're talking about here. That's Columbia County. It could be that bad on the road if we get a half inch of ice, give or take, based on what some of the models say. It could be a winter storm watch, from pretty much, let's say 95% of our counties here, coming up. If the European model verifies, maybe you don't get it for Flagler or at least parts of Marion, but as we're looking at it, or some of these other coastal regions, maybe you don't get it for coastal St. John's or something, but we could have snow to the beaches, Panama City and in our area down in Wakulla and Franklin, and it's possible here. And then, in Glen, maybe you get it all the way to the coast. A very distinct possibility, but it could be a winter storm watch for most of us. most of us. And then a winter storm warning for a lot, and there may even be, we've never had an issue from the Weather Service in Jacksonville or Tallahassee, I don't think. I was looking up tonight, an ice storm warning. That may get issued. We've never had that before, generally. And there's different criteria based on different offices, and around here it might not take, as much, but I think it was a quarter inch or more of ice accumulation potentially get that. But if there's too much mixing of snow, sleet, and ice, and maybe they don't issue that, and they just go with winter storm warning, broad brush it. But if we have enough confidence about certain counties getting just mostly ice and maybe a lot of it, they may, Weather Service offices, especially Jacksonville, if the one model verifies it, may not. Now the Canadian model is kind of on board with this as well, so it's not it's not just one rogue run here at this point. I wouldn't be talking about it like this if it was. We've seen multiple runs of the European, the Canadian model showing this here with the ice possibilities. We could have an ice storm warning for the first time ever for parts of North Central Florida next week. That's not out of the question here, is what I'm saying. So that'd be a big deal, really big impact. Could rival a hurricane if that were to happen. Let's hope it doesn't. Let's hope it doesn't verify like that. That would be problematic in so many ways. It's all about where the low pressure goes, how it interacts here with things. It could be really, tricky. I'm looking at the icon model, and it's not really showing, the wintry precip getting near as far south in the latest run. It does have snow in Pensacola and southern Alabama and maybe to Albany, then it kind of switches it. So as it gets further south, so there's still enough uncertainty here. You got to be a little bit careful, a little bit cautious still about all this. But that's kind of what I was showing earlier to some degree as well. But a lot of the models are on board with this, so we got to be prepared for the potential impacts. I'm looking at the Canadian now, and it has such ice here, like around North Central Florida, and the Europeans, pretty similar story. It would be a historic event, either one of those. They're, very, very similar. And the European model, is very reliable. The GFS is showing enough snow to be a big deal for our area, but actually, more about snow than anything, and we would like that. You don't get as much of the ice, you don't get much of the bad stuff, and you maybe get the snow all the way, at least, in the form of maybe a dusting to somewhere around Stark to Jacksonville and north and west. But we shall see here how this kind of transpires. So again, a lot of models are showing this. There's high likelihood that some of our area is going to get wintry precip next week. Temperatures just a few degrees here and there make all the difference in the world here. So just keep that in mind. And then as we see now, the extended forecast looks a lot different than we generally have it, but cool here today. 30 starting out, 60s in the afternoon there. Advertised about what we're going to get to on that Friday, but then Saturday, a little warmer than average. Some storms, later on, and we'll be watching to see if we get some warnings, road warnings. Could have quite a bit of precip out of this. Some areas could get a few inches of rain. As we're looking toward the weekend, it'll be rain toward the Saturday, Sunday period here. As we're looking at things, we're talking about lightning. Could even have, there's some nasty, weather, on and off, even Saturday afternoon. But Sunday morning looks about the worst based on the models I've seen so far. Again, there's still a lot of uncertainty, but for every model pretty much that I've seen that I use here, so wintry precipitation, accumulating on parts of our area next week. With a lot of those models, showing impacts. We got to really ramp this up here. This could be a very big deal. But it is more of a novelty. That's still not off the table. But right now, it's looking like somebody's going to have wintry precip within our 62 counties. Again, not a lot of folks, as we're looking at this. So, there's a big range. So, if, as you're looking at it, there's a very big range because, some of you want to snow. Some of you just want cold rain maybe instead of snow. You don't want to deal with it. You moved up, toward this area, moved away from northern areas to get away from the snow. But others of you, are looking at this and you're saying, I just don't want ice. As we're kind of looking here, you just don't want ice. And that's what everybody needs to be saying. when we look at this, week from now, give or take, let's just hope we don't get the ice, because the ice is the problem. The snow can still be problematic. It can still be deadly. But, ice, much, much, much more dangerous. Snow, more fun, more of a fun memory if you, kind of, take the situation as one that's careful. I'm almost at a loss for words because I'm not used to talking about stuff like this around here, but if you're extra careful during the snow, good chance you're okay. Ice, it may not work out that way. It could be, a matter of life and death with an ice storm. We don't want that. Okay, so you see rain chances drop some toward Monday next week after we have the storm Saturday, Sunday. But look how cold it is on Monday, only 45 degrees. The temperature trend, if we don't get the wintry precip, maybe we're a few degrees warmer than this, but we're probably only going to be in the 40s for the high next week for, a stretch of days. Some areas in Georgia may have trouble getting out of the 30s for highs next week. When I was at FSU in 2014 during that storm system there, the forecast highs versus the actual highs, were a little bit different. We were not expecting to really only get to, I think it was around the freezing point for the high the day of the event there when classes were canceled. It just didn't warm up. So if we really get this to verify, we may even in Florida have trouble getting out of the 30s for highs, some of these days here next week. So got to be careful with the pipes, especially, those ones that are not really protected here. Those, could be a problem. I don't have extreme cold lows on here right now because of the clouds, the precip. It may go a little cooler than this in some of our Georgia counties. More rural counties could get closer to the mid-20s depending on how things set up. Again, it's a very unique forecast, one that I've never showed here in 5+ years of doing this at Cloud Weather. A very unusual scenario, but there's still a chance, Stark, Gainesville end up just getting a cold rain out of this. But that's on the table here. Still a pretty decent chance that happens, but Tallahassee, Albany, Waycross, you're probably getting some wintry weather here that could be something you'll remember for a while, whether it's the positive type in the form of snow mostly, or the very negative type in the form of ice, which is also called freezing rain. So again, really 4 types of precip we're talking about here. Rain, that's a cold rain, is what we could be down with. Sleet, those are those little balls here that are fun. It's kind of like hail. That's not really fun, but it's not really terribly dangerous for the most part, unless you really get a whole bunch of it to accumulate. Then you have the snow, which is fun in a lot of cases. But then ice, that is your worst case scenario. That is freezing rain. That is impactful. That can, be crippling for an area. You got to watch out for running generators that you don't get carbon monoxide poisoning, because a lot of folks could be without power in an ice storm. And again, parts of the area could get something different. It's not like everybody's going to get ice or everybody's going to get the snow. It could be a mix. Now sleet's kind of that in between there. If you get sleet, you're probably going to get something else in there at some point as well, whether it's ice and or snow. But, some area, it could be really 3 different distinct paths here across your area in terms of the geography, where we have a swath in general. Now, there's a chance in the models show something coming in a little before the main event, where we could get some flurries or something like late Monday night. But I'm talking about even North Central Florida. I've seen that in some of the runs, and we'll have to wait for the high-res models to get a better handle on this and the like. Just a degree or 2 can make a big difference here on everything, and that goes for a loft here as well. But talking about, you could have a swath of snow, parts of area getting that, a swath of the freezing rain, part of area getting that and being without power potentially for a while, because Florida does have experience dealing with hurricane power outages. And now ice storm power outages, not so much. Granted, there would be some similarities, but also differences. Then there would be a swap of maybe the cold rain, you'll say. What in the world is this guy talking about here? It wasn't a big deal. It was just cold, a little wet on the roads, a little slick, but that's just more from the oils and the like. So, we're gonna be here. We're gonna get to this. We're gonna get this together here at Cloud Weather. This winter storm that may happen here, in terms of big impacts. We've kind of went over it here best we can. I just don't want to get too into the models yet. Once we get within 2 to 3 days here, that's when we're really starting to nail things down with the high risk guidance, and even that could still be off by a good bit here. Even up, to just a several hour period before it really gets going. I mean, the models don't even have that much experience. The high res guidance dealing with stuff like this in this type of area here in terms of the geography and the like, you have to deal with the ocean temperatures even. That can play a role here as well. So, I mean, we're talking, let's say, as we're getting here, the big event might be later Tuesday, even though there could be some stuff earlier on. So, that means we don't really have an idea here until maybe late Saturday, give or take, on what could happen. So, and we start getting watches across the area advisories, winter advisories for some of us. But I know also, it's MLK Day weekend here. So most of you do have Monday off here as we're looking at the calendar. And that's also January 20th, which is Presidential Inauguration Day up there toward Washington, D.C. And it's going to be very cold for that up there. I mean, you see how cool it's going to be here, how cold it's going to be. It's going to be, below freezing during the day, it seems like, up there. So that's something to definitely keep your eyes on there, just in terms of the overall weather picture. I mean, it's going to be, they're going to even just be maybe having snow move out as well. So. And the snow could even, impact other states to the west here too. We could see, wintry weather. This next event after that event moves out from D.C. We could have wintry weather in southern Texas, southern Louisiana, talking about ice, sleet, and or snow. So, that's something to kind of be talking about here as well. Even honestly, a little more likely than us. The guidance is even a little bit more bullish on them than us. So that, that's something that's very unusual here as we're looking at things. So, of course, that would include southern Alabama there as well. But again, just kind of giving you guys a look here at everything. Just kind of giving you that overview here of the situation. So I definitely hope everybody's going to be bundling up here in the days to come, as we're looking at things, as we're tracking the overall situation. Again, that pretty much does it for tonight. I'll be back on it if as needed in the days to come here, as we're kind of tracking things. We'll be giving updates. Facebook, KC Cloud Every X, Cloud Weather on Facebook as well. Twitter /X at Cloud KC. YouTube at Cloud Weather. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And you can back that stream up here, and see what I was talking about maybe a little while ago while I'm still on, something like that. That's really helpful in live, long form coverage if you're wanting to see what I said 15 minutes ago and you don't want to wait to the video ending, something like that. So that is really helpful there. And the model runs come out here every 6 hours or so, the global model. So you just had to know as runs come out. So that's sometimes when I'm on a little bit later than maybe you guys would like out there. But just so I can give you the latest, fresh information from the guidance and kind of, interpret that for myself so I can put together a forecast for you, your friends, and your family. We also have Twitch there, Cloud Weather, and you have cloudweather.com. And you have the interactive radar on cloudweather.com as well. So we're always keeping you guys covered here in this type of situation. So don't see any questions or comments right now, but I thank you so much for tuning in and trusting me for tonight. Going to be a busy period ahead. We have some storms Saturday, Sunday. Could have a few warnings. We'll be on if and as needed. We may just, if there's not tornado warning, not something overwhelming in terms of a severe thunderstorm warning, we'll potentially just be posting about those there on Facebook and Twitter /X. I mean, it's the difference if it looks like not too big of a deal, maybe just posting, but we'll be on if it's something a little more, urgent, even if it's technically a severe thunderstorm warning, or if we somehow were to get a flash flood warning. It's the same deal. But any tornado warning in our 62 counties, we're always on. among for every single one over the last 5 years or so. But again, the winter weather impact next week could be a very big deal. I'll be back here as we get through these days ahead. I know it's just interesting to see the impactful weather. I mean, presidential inauguration day 8 years ago, and it's actually not good in terms of what I'm going to mention here. 8 years ago, in terms of a couple of days after, we had the terrible tornadoes there toward Georgia, Adel and Albany, right after there. Obviously there's no connection. It's just a terrible coincidence. But talking about 8 years ago there, we had all those fatalities in 2017. It was, the weather changes, you do have different meteorology and meteorological type of impacts. 2017, right after there, it was Friday, I think would have been the 20th then. So you had the Hattiesburg tornado on the 21st, and then late 21st, early 22nd, you had Adele. Then you had Albany there during the day, the tornado emergency, and pretty similar time frame here in 2025 as we're looking at things. So it's going to be a big deal, potentially an ice storm coming on in as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here. If not an ice storm, maybe it's, more about the snow. That's what we'd rather have. Could be a lot of fun if we get lucky here versus, a lot of problems. Or it could be a lot of cold rain for folks. You just never know. We'll be here to watch things. But for now, have a great night. Stay safe out there. Enjoy that weekend. Enjoy that holiday weekend here. And we'll be back here as the conditions do warrant. Stay dry, but also stay warm.